What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Power Gamers Tactics Room. I'm your host, Bill Brun Bafflestone. So today we're having another episode of my Buddy Build series, where I present to you two fully fleshed out character concepts, levels 1 through 20, that are designed to work together, develop together, and synergize together to be more than the sum of their parts. Today I'm going to be doing a classic BladeSinger to continue my focus on BladeSingers lately, and I am going to be pairing him with a Shepherd Druid. So I'm not gonna lie, this one was so much work. It's two full spellcasters developing side by side, and had to go through a few iterations and such, so been putting in probably like 40 hours of work on this thing. But that's the level of excellence that I want to offer here at my channel, and as I told myself over and over as I was grinding through this, if it was for $1 million client, I would be happy to do the work. And because I think of you guys as $1 million clients, I was happy to do the work. And so if you appreciate it, please like, comment, subscribe, or check out the Patreon to support the channel. And without further ado, let's check out this Buddy Builds. So I put the setup on the screen so you can check things out and see how I've set it all up. The BladeSinger is going to start out as a variant human with Strength 8, Dexterity 16, Con 14, Intelligence 16, Wisdom 10, and Charisma 8. And the Druid will be a V-Human with Strength 8, Dex 16, Con 14, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 16, and Charisma 10. The BladeSinger is going to be going with Dual Rapiers, and I have again included a DPR baseline and DPR build columns so that we can see how the damage stacks up against an agonizing blast with a hex thrown in, hitting 60% of the time. So just a few comments before we jump into the nitty-gritty. I am presenting a straight classic BladeSinger with a sword that people wanted to see. My last few BladeSinger builds were a little bit heavy on the conceptualizing and the min-maxing, and people wanted to see a more straightforward build, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm not trying to break the game with any personal, unusual min-max combos or overpowered archetypes. Now you can certainly mix in, say, Peace or Twilight domains here, or whatever you prefer, but that's not really my goal here. I think those are pretty controversial archetypes that won't necessarily be welcome at every table. Plus, I don't want to go back to those wells too often, and I've already used Twilight in a previous build. And I'm basically trying to minimize the controversy and the chance that a DM might intervene in the build. I think my last beastly BladeSinger build might have broken the game, and I had the criticism that no DM would ever allow it, even though it's totally rules as written. So the idea is to present a standard, non-kooky team that supports each other in a straightforward way, but hopefully an illuminating way, because some of the ways that two different characters can synergize together aren't necessarily apparent, and it's cool to kind of watch how they progress. Basically, every 2 levels, they upgrade their spell preps and enable new combos. And the playstyle I'm going for here with the BladeSinger is to tank it up. Get right into the middle of things, smack the crap out of things, absorb attacks, the whole 9 yards. But I am pairing the BladeSinger with a buddy. And as buddies, they will fight together as a team and ultimately become a lethal summoning duo in later levels. I think the Druid and the Wizard spell list complement each other very well. They both have unique spells and strategic redundancy that combos really well. And I think this concept has only slightly above average performance in Tier 1, largely because the Druid is playing more of a healer role and not exerting too much of an impact on the outcome of the battle. But this duo really takes off in Tier 2 and never looks back. Even though I tried not to, I think I break the game again in Tier 3. I certainly take us down a road where we're going to have to dial it back, or the DM is just going to be like suicidal. And the playstyle of the Druid in this pairing is as ranged support. He's pretty squishy, he doesn't have a great armor class. In Tier 1, he is going to be staying as far away from battle as possible and doing a ranged thing. And in Tier 2, he does get right up front and in the middle of things, but under extremely protected circumstances, as we'll discuss. So moving into level 1, and I see that I forgot to put the headers on the top, so it might be hard to figure out what all of this means, but at first level, our BladeSinger is going to be starting as a fighter. He has 12 hit points, armor class 17, initiative of +3, saves as shown on the screen, an attack bonus of +5. He's using dual rapiers, so doing a d8 +3 damage with each, because he has dual wielder, and fighting style 2-weapon fighting to go with second wind. As you see, that puts his DPR comfortably above baseline, almost double with normal attacks, and almost triple with attacks at advantage. Our Druid, on the other hand, is going to be starting as a Life Cleric, with 10 hit points, 16 armor class, +3 initiative, saves as shown, +5 to hit, a d8 +3 damage with his Shillelagh and his light crossbow, and starting with the Magic Initiate feat, and has the Disciple of Life ability to go with a few cantrips and spells. His DPR isn't great next to the baseline, and it doesn't really get better because this character is not about pumping out damage, but in Tier 1 pumping out healing, and in Tier 2+ pumping out lethal summon spells. So while I've included the numbers, I don't think they're particularly valid when it comes to the Life Cleric, but I promise you I will be putting out all of the relevant numbers so we can make comparisons and such for the BladeSinger. So comments on the setup for the BladeSinger are pretty simple. He's a fighter, so no real special abilities. Armor will be Scale Mail plus Dex plus Dual Wielder, which gives you a +1. And his strategy is pretty simple. Round 1, he will attack, and attack again with his bonus action offhand weapon, and he'll just do it again in round 2, 3, 4, popping second wind when needed, and that'll get him to level 2. The Life Cleric has a lot of spells, so the setup is going to be a little bit more complicated. At level 1, we start him with Magic Initiate, and he gets 3 Cleric cantrips, so he's going to be taking Minor Illusion, Mind Sliver, Guidance, Light, and Mending. For preps, he is taking Find Familiar with Magic Initiate. From his domain, he gets Bless and Cure Wounds, and for his level, he gets Healing Word, Sanctuary, Command, and Shield of Faith. For armor, Scale Mail plus Dex, no shield, so he can reload his light crossbow and cast without any issues. He has Disciple of Life, which of course is awesome for buffing your healing abilities. Minor Illusion is added for defense and tricksiness, one of my favorite cantrips in the game. Can help out in a tight scenario if things get hairy because this is a pretty squishy character. Mind Sliver as an elite debuff to set up Saber Suck combos. It's also an attack that has no visible origin, so you can cast it from inside a Minor Illusion crate. Guidance is self-explanatory. It's one of the best cantrips in the game, so you always add it when you have the chance. Light because we don't have dark vision. Mending for recovering and fixing bolts and utility repairs. And we added Find Familiar through our feat for utility. It's also key in a combo that comes online at level 2, but for now we will go with the Owl for the flyby help action. Since the BladeSinger is starting out as a fighter, you might need a little bit of help to get an attack at advantage at first level, so his buddy's got his back. Bless is always a nice add because it offers an elite combat bump, but we'll only use it if we're able to precast, and we only have 2 slots right now anyway, so we're going to be reserving both of those for Healing Word. And we have Cure Wounds and Healing Word as our basic healing suite, as we are Life Clerics, so this will be our main thing, and Disciple of Life makes these elite in the early levels. We're adding Sanctuary as a bonus action defense if attacked due to our squishiness, and it will also protect our familiar, as I will describe when I talk about later levels. Command, of course, is always awesome. It can create opportunity attacks when the enemy is surrounded by allies. And Shield of Faith is nice as a bonus action cast defense that can bump our BladeSinger's armor class by 2, if necessary. We don't really have anything occupying our concentration right now, and as I said, both of our slots are dedicated to Healing Word if possible. So in round 1, we'll Bless if we do that, but more often than not, we are going to just attack and use the Familiar to apply the help action. At level 2, our BladeSinger switches over to the Wizard progression and never looks back. He's going to be Fighter 1 and Wizard 19 at the end of it. Gets his cantrips and spells. So for cantrips, he's going to take Firebolt, Booming Blade, and Green Flame Blade. His starting spellbook will be Find Familiar, Detect Magic, Mage Armor, Shield, Expeditious Retreat, and Sleep. Of those, he will prep Mage Armor, Shield, Expeditious Retreat, and Sleep. And he took Firebolt as a ranged attack roll option that destroys objects, although we'll probably use the Longbow for standard ranged attacks just because it has better damage. Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade will bolster our DPR. They're the standard martial wizard cantrips. Green Flame Blade will be our primary attack if the conditions are correct, because Booming Blade is unreliable. This build doesn't really so far have any means of free disengaging, so we're not going to be able to get the space we need to make the Booming Blade's secondary damage reliable. We also get a Familiar, and we will also take an Owl for the flyby help action, but is also going to be distributing life berries with Abandon, as I'll talk about in a minute. We'll take Detect Magic as a ritual since we have no available preps. We added Mage Armor and Shield as the standard Wizard Protection suite. No room yet for Absorb Elements, as I wanted Expeditious Retreat immediately, plus I only have 2 slots, and one of them is going to be Mage Armor, so I have only 1 slot left. So I decided to go with Shield. I don't expect it to be much of an issue at 2nd level. I don't expect to be seeing a lot of energy damage. We added Expeditious Retreat to give us enhanced speed if needed against kiting. Really a nice spell for that sort of thing. But it will cause bonus action clog with your offhand attack, so use with discretion. We also don't really have the slots to bust it out willy-nilly. And Sleep will be our low-level huge gun. It's just massively effective at 2nd level. Concentration will be reserved for Expeditious Retreat. It's the only thing we have that uses concentration right now. And note the DPR column reflects only the secondary damage of Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. Any bumps to the base hit are going to be figured into the base hit calculations, and the 2 numbers shown are just for the secondary effect if the secondary effect goes off. Turning to our Druid. At 2nd level, he takes his first Druid level, and he is going Druid the rest of the way. We'll end up a Life Cleric 1 and Shepherd Druid 19. So for our Druid cantrips, we are going to add Thorn Whip and Shillelagh. For our preps, we will add Goodberry, Fairy Fire, Entangle, and Fog Cloud. Armor switched to Studded Leather because we're a Druid and we don't wear metal. And we added the Thorn Whip cantrip as an excellent all-around ranged pull option. It might be useful to provide the BladeSinger a free disengage to get Booming Blade to work, and eventually it's going to be nice to combo with Spike Growth. We added Shillelagh as a melee option if forced, but we're really going to try and avoid melee combat. And the important thing is that Life Berry is now online. Each Life Berry cast at 1st level is going to heal 4 hit points, and that's going to be bumped by +1 per spell level. So that's going to be one of our main things. Life Berry is one of the most powerful combos in the game, and we are going to be leveraging it heavily. Both of us have familiars. These familiars are going to apply life berries as needed throughout combat. We are going with the Jeremy Crawford ruling that familiars can apply them to others as per Potions of Healing, which rules as written you can apply to others. And I do understand that some DMs are going to have a problem with this, so your mileage may vary. I stand by my arguments that rules as written, this is perfectly valid. But I promise you, some people are going to object, oh my god, there's no possible way that an owl can use his talons to manipulate a berry. They're completely cosmetic and aren't used for anything in nature like grabbing prey or branches and stuff. That makes no sense, I'm going to nerf it. Anyway, you can play it however you want. I'm just going to go with the rules as written and what Jeremy Crawford says and presume that your familiar can apply life berries to other people because that's kind of a core function of this concept. And we're going to dump all of our daily remaining spell slots into life berries before a long rest. Goodberry has a 24-hour duration, so we are going to get maximum level life berries if we are careful about managing our slots throughout the day. And we'll have all of our spell slots. So really nice synergy there with the duration and long rest rules. And life berries are just amazing because they basically provide total party heals between battles. And for this party, hit points are now essentially a totally renewable resource. Life berries just generate so much healing. Now we are going to be casting Sanctuary regularly going forward to buff our familiar with a strong protection versus attack. Remember that the familiar can't attack or cast, so it can't trigger the Sanctuary end conditions. So it's going to be able to distribute life berries with Abandon, and if the enemy gets annoyed and tries to attack it, it's going to have to pass a Wisdom save first. Our concentration is going to be dedicated to either Fairy Fire, Entangle, Fog Cloud, or Shield of Faith. Fairy Fire is preferred to grant advantage on attacks with no end of turn save for the whole party, and it's also good against invisible creatures. Entangle is nice as a control option, and also good for defense by being able to block off enemies while you shoot or cast at them. And we have Fog Cloud strictly as a defense versus crazy good sight abilities and enemies that attack at advantage, like wolves and such. Our DPR drops below baseline, but that's okay because this character is a support healer and isn't about pumping out the damage. On round 1, he will be launching a Fairy Fire, Entangle, or Fog Cloud, or attack if he doesn't want to use a spell slot. And on round 2, he will attack and use a bonus action Sanctuary on the familiar. He could do that on the first round if he doesn't cast a spell, or he will support the party with a healing word, since as a life cleric he gets a d4 +6 out of each cast. At level 3, we officially become a BladeSinger by adding our second wizard level. To our spellbook, we add Absorb Elements and Unseen Servant. We add Absorb Elements to our preps. For armor, we are switching to Mage Armor, plus our Dexterity, plus the Dual Wielder bump, plus Bladesong, for a total of 17, or 20 with Bladesong active. We added Absorb Elements to complete the basic spell defensive suite. We added Unseen Servant as a ritual, as we had no available preps. And our concentration saves are very strong, currently at +7. Only a 10% chance to fail a standard concentration save right now. And we get a 7-point bump to our hit points thanks to the Druid's Bear Spirit Totem, which I'll talk about in a minute. And don't forget we have a double layer of these, because we're going to start combat with a layer of temporary hit points, and then the Druid is going to refresh them during combat with a bonus action. Our concentration is still reserved for Expeditious Retreat. We don't really have too many demands on concentration at the moment. And we are now using the Druid as a mount if we desire for added mobility. Don't really get too much benefit out of it otherwise, and the Druid might not be down with it because that would bring him into harm's way, and he's still currently trying to keep his distance. But it is possible if you need to run something down using the Warhorse and at speed 60 or something, for example. Round 1 will be the Sleeve Spell or Attack, and on our bonus action we will activate our Bladesong. Remember, that is going to occupy our round 1 bonus action from here on out. And on our round 2, we will begin attacking with our main hand and our bonus action offhand attack. And of course, we can pop Second Wind with our bonus action if needed. Our Druid advances another level and officially becomes a Shepherd. He adds Wild Shape, Speech of the Woods, and his Spirit Totem. For preps, he will also add Absorb Elements, which will give him at least one of the primary defensive reactions. And he will be using Wild Shape to provide a mount for the BladeSinger. However, this combo doesn't really come online until level 5. For now, we're probably going to want to use our Wild Shape as an extra familiar for Life Berry distribution until then. I mean, you can strategically use your forms for combat if you like. It is pretty cool. But this concept is about creating Life Berries and distributing them to the party and the BladeSinger using familiars and summons. So a second familiar is going to be really nice. We're going to have huge batches of powerful Life Berries, and distributing them to any party member that takes damage is going to be this character's whole shtick, at least at the beginning. For the Spirit Totem, the Bear Spirit makes the most sense to me, as we will be in Wild Shape form so often, especially once we hit Tier 2, and you can't cast spells in Wild Shape, so I don't see that you get much benefit from the Unicorn Spirit Totem. And one thing I like about the Bear Spirit is that you can rest trick it. That is, you can take a long rest, immediately use the Bear Spirit Totem to confer temporary hit points to all party members, including your familiars. Then you take an immediate short rest after that to extend your long rest to a total of 9 hours, but to gain the benefits of the temporary hit points. That means you can start the battle with temporary hit points for all party members, and then I can use the Bear Spirit Totem while I'm in Wild Shape to refresh the temporary hit points as needed. Now, I understand that some DMs are going to nerf this because I guess they think it's cheesy or whatever, but I'm going by rules as written here, and I see logistically no difference between a 9-hour long rest and an 8-hour long rest, so it only makes sense to take advantage of that. Plus, the Bear Spirit Totem is excellent in buffing party member grapple and shove attempts, and that's going to come into play later because we're going to be adding Spike Growth soon. Our concentration is dedicated to Fairy Fire, Entangle, Fog Cloud, or Shield of Faith, and we're going to be casting one of those spells on round 1, and then on round 2 we are going to attack and bonus action Sanctuary on our familiar, or Shield of Faith on the BladeSinger. Or we can do the Bear Spirit Totem. We could have done these things before, but it's not until this level that our spell slots open up, and before I was trying to reserve those slots for Healing Word, and now that we've doubled our slots we can be a little bit more aggressive. The BladeSinger familiar will largely be protected in his backpack, and the Druid familiars will be more actively mobile to support the rest of the party. Remember, there's going to be 3 familiars operating at this point. The BladeSinger has 1, and the Druid has 2, one through his Magic Initiate, and one through expending a Wild Shape. At level 4, our BladeSinger achieves 3rd level Wizard, and gets 2nd level spells and a doubling of his slots. To our spellbook, we are adding Blur and Web. To our preps, we are also adding Blur and Web and dropping Sleep at this point. And Blur is going to be our primary defense and concentration option for the next couple of levels. It offers an elite defensive combo with your high AC, which is currently 20, especially with Shield of Faith active and a 22 AC. This is only 4th level, remember. If you cast Shield, you are almost unhittable. And even if you are hit, you have 2 layers of temporary hit points, and you have the familiar Life Berry combos to remove damage. Blur is just an amazing defensive spell in that it's always on, it affects all attacks per round, and it has no end conditions. I think Mirror Image is probably more popular because it's no concentration, but it goes away quick. It only blocks 3 attacks, and the dice come into play, not so much with Blur. Now I want to point out, you can choose to go with Shadowblade here if you prefer offense. I'm going with defense here. If you choose to go with Shadowblade, the offhand weapon ensures that you can use Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade every round, even if the DM disallows them with Shadowblade due to the Tasha's changes, even though Jeremy Crawford has indicated that you can use those cantrips with Shadowblade. Some DMs might disallow it, but because you have an offhand weapon that will not be the Shadowblade, you can reliably use these cantrips. However, I already did a Shadowblade BladeSinger build a couple videos ago, and this build needs the AC bump from Blur. You'll see what I'm talking about here at the next level. I do want to point out from a statistics perspective, ideally you're going to get a good magic weapon to offset the DPR calculation superiority of Shadowblade. All right, magic weapons force multiply DPR numbers, whereas Shadowblade DPR doesn't change. So this kind of gives a false shine to Shadowblade DPR numbers in most calculations when you are talking about people number crunching builds, because those are typically done without considering magic weapons. And when you're comparing a Shadowblade to a normal weapon, it tends to look really good. But when you add magic weapons, especially powerful ones like Flame Tongues and such, those greatly force multiply with non-Shadowblade tactics, and their DPR numbers in practice are much higher than in most calculations. So just a subtlety that I think people should probably be aware of if you're the sort that gets really obsessed and blinded by looking at DPR numbers. Now that said, Shadowblade is possibly a superior option if you are regularly in darkness or dim light to get those constant attacks at advantage. So for viewer convenience, I have included the Shadowblade DPR numbers in orange. I'm not pursuing the Shadowblade route on this build, but some people might want to do it. And it's interesting to see how much damage it does relative to the options that we will pursue. And I'll be able to talk about the differences and why you might want to choose one over the other. We're adding Web as a ranged control option to complement Spike Growth if needed. Combo casting both at once into the same area is pretty nasty, or you can cast them side by side to extend the area of effect of your control. Our concentration will be dedicated to Web or Blur, or Shadowblade if you prefer. And our DPR numbers dip as the baseline target AC increases without a commensurate attack bump increase, but we're still above the baseline. Just a little mathematics note for the numbers geeks out there. And at this level, our round 1 will be Blur plus bonus action Blade Song, and then round 2 attack with our bonus action offhand attack. Again, with Blur, our armor class is going to be 20 or 22 with an available shield spell, and because of Blur, they're attacking us at disadvantage. So very good defenses. It's going to be very hard for enemies to lay a glove on us. Our Druid adds another level into Shepherd and adds Summon Beast and Spike Growth as his preps, dropping Entangle. Summon Beast to add our first summon that is going to support the BladeSinger. That is part of the concept. This character is going to be supporting the BladeSinger with summons, and this is his first summon. Again, recall that all allies gain temporary hit point benefits from the Bear Spirit Totem, so our summons are going to have an additional layer of hit point protection. And the Land Beast looks good. It's got a 30-foot climb speed and pack tactics, so it can get really nice numbers out of that. The Air Beast can be sneaky good though too as well. It has a 60-foot fly and an 18 strength, so you can grapple with it pretty effectively, and then fly 30 feet up to drop your enemy for 3d6 falling damage and the prone condition. And again, remember the Bear Spirit Totem grants advantage on grapple checks, so pretty nice combo to use with that spell. And of course, the Air Beast will be situationally useful against flying creatures. I also added Spike Growth as a signature Druid spell as a Plan B control option. It offers superior control and defense relative to Entangle in my opinion. Combos nicely with Thorn Whip to pull them through the spikes and other party push-pull options. And you can also just grapple and drag enemies with the Cheese Grater combo. Again, the Cheese Grater combo is enabled by the Bear Spirit Totem, and it combos with the Bladesinger's Web to combine damage and restrain conditions or to extend the area effect of the control. Our concentration is going to be dedicated to summons as Plan A for the rest of our career. We're Shepherd Druids, so we summon, and we are going to be trying to keep our summons for the full 1 hour duration. So our round 1 is going to be Summon Beast, and the Beast attacks or use Spike Growth, and in round 2 we will attack and use the bonus action Sanctuary to protect our own familiar or do the Shield of Faith on the BladeSinger. So throughout Tier 1 we've been effective but boring. Haven't done anything too special, but now that we hit level 5 and Tier 2, things really start to take off for us. We add a 4th wizard level to our BladeSinger, and Mounted Combatant. To his spellbook, we add Flock of Familiars and Misty Step, and prep them both, dropping Expeditious Retreat. That's right, we are doubling down on Lifeberry and using Flock of Familiars to even more heavily leverage it. It has a 1 hour duration and no concentration, so precast before battle, and it just creates a platform to deliver elite free action heals every round. Now all 3 of your familiars from this spell can hide in your backpack and apply life berries with abandon, but it's better to assign 2 of them to the druid to help with life berry distribution to the whole party. Again, all of them can benefit from the bear totem spirit for an additional 9 hit points. And I get it, I couldn't resist a little rules as written min-maxing here. I just can't help it. And I couldn't resist a chance to actually add Flock of Familiars in a way that makes a difference. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this. Now, you should check with the DM just in case he thinks this is OP and wants to nerf it. Rules as written, he doesn't have much of a case, but he doesn't really need much of a case. He's the DM, so he can do whatever he likes. I think it's a little weird that one would feel the need to nerf Flock of Familiars, but believe me, I'm used to it at this point. Obviously, if the DM has an issue with this, choose a different spell and not Flock of Familiars. We add Misty Step as an elite teleport option. Our cantrips bump in damage to buff Green Flame Blade and Booming Blade, and Mounted Combatant is now online. We are going to be mounting the Druid as a combat combo for the rest of our careers, at least through Tier 3. The Druid will take Constrictor, Warhorse, Giant Lizard, or Crocodile form at this level. And remember, Mounted Combatant grants us attacks at advantage versus any creatures smaller than the mount. So the Druid wild shape form can be huge, and we can get those critical attacks at advantage against even large creatures. The BladeSinger will now redirect all attacks towards the Druid into our Blur Bladesong defense. That's why it was so important to take Blur and not get seduced by offense and taking Shadowblade. Mounted Combatant also provides the Druid evasion to protect him from area of effect damage. He saves against Dex AoE for half or none, and some really great forms. The Constrictor has Blind Sight, a swim speed, and an elite auto-restrained attack that you can combo with Spike Growth, because you can attack and move and grate them all in the same round. That's a really fun one. The Warhorse has a really nice 60-foot move and a bonus action trample attack. The Giant Lizard is nice if we need a climb speed, and the Crocodile is nice if we need a swim speed and an elite auto-restrain attack. And it can hold its breath for 15 minutes, so it can grapple and then drown enemies if water's nearby. That's how crocodiles do it in real life. Booming Blade also now is online, as the mount can perform a disengage action to get the necessary space. So still not our main attack, but we can use it opportunistically. But again, the Blur and the AC buffs are just incredibly important to our tactics here. All attacks directed away from the Druid and towards us, so we're going to need to be able to handle all of those attacks. And with an AC of 20, plus the shield spell, plus Blur, we're going to be doing fine. Almost all of those attacks are going to miss. Even if a few get through, we have the temporary hit points from the Bear Spirit Totem. And if we ever do start to take damage, all that means is that our familiars are going to start pumping life berries into me and regenerating those hit points. So as a duo, we are almost invulnerable to attack. Our enemies are going to have one hell of a time trying to bring us down. And again, our concentration is still dedicated to Blur or the Shadowblade if you went with Shadowblade. But I think that's foolish. Blur is so much better for this build. I do see the numbers, and it is a little bit better than just regular 2-weapon fighting. I get it, but it takes your concentration, and then you get hit a lot, and then the Druid dies, and that's just not how this works. The Druid adds another level of Shepherd, and the Lucky Feat. Gets a new cantrip here, so adds Shape Water. To his preps, adds Lesser Restoration. The Shape Water is nice to create cover when there's water available. If you want to get nuts with it, you can carry it around on a cart or some such, or get yourself a decanter of Endless Water. Nice combo there. Lesser Restoration is a great spell to heal the specified conditions, and the Lucky Feat is great for this build. You get rerolls for all sorts of things, but for this concept, primarily it's for the dex save rerolls that you might have to take while you're in mount form. Remember, because we are protected by Mount and Combated, we only take half or none from area of effect dex saves, so Lucky's going to give us another layer. If we fail, we can use a Lucky reroll, and then maybe we take 0 damage. Again, we will almost never take damage due to the BladeSinger protecting us with Mounted Combatant. I'm going to be redirecting all the rolls to the BladeSinger. The area of effect damage isn't going to be too tough since we have Lucky plus the evasion of Mounted Combatant. And so our concentration is almost impossible to break due to the difficulty of causing damage to the Druid. See, our 1/2 swimming wild shapes are now online. That's why we had the Constrictor and the Crocodile available. And again, the funnest wild shape combo is to do the Constrictor. Remember, the BladeSinger is mounting you at this point, but the Constrictor is large, and it will auto-grapple on its attack, can grind the enemy through spike growth, and then the BladeSinger is going to be right there mounted to finish them off. Fun times. Plus, at this level, our Life Berry jumps up to a maximum of 6 hit points per, and we'll try and make as many of those as possible, of course. At this point, our round 1 will be to either spike growth or to summon Beast, and then in round 2, we are going to be wild shaping into our mount form right after using our bonus action for something useful. Remember that our partner, the BladeSinger, has to use his first round bonus action to Blade Song, so he's not going to need to be mounted to get attacks at advantage until round 2. At level 6, we get another level of Wizard and get 3rd level spells. We get another cantrip, so we add Dancing Lights. To our spellbook, we add Haste and Tiny Hut, and to our preps, we add Haste. Dancing Lights is for tactical lighting as needed. We don't have dark vision, and our partner has light, but Dancing Lights is nice to light up enemies from a distance while they can't see you. And we added Haste as our primary attack option for the rest of our career. I already did a Shadowblade build, and then I did a Dragon's Breath build, and now I'm doing a Haste build. I really like Haste. Not only does it get you the extra attack action, but also a +2 on AC, and the 80-foot move with Blade Song is really nice. You are going to be mounted most of the time, but with 80-foot move, you can dismount and still move effectively. And here the DPR of Haste is almost equal to the Shadowblade with non-magic weapons. And again, the DPR would be superior if any kind of magic weapon is available, which seems likely to me. Of course, it is campaign dependent, but magic weapons aren't exactly uncommon in Dungeons & Dragons. And remember, Shadowblade shines in comparisons with no magic items. Haste, however, does have a higher force multiplier effect with magic weapons in play, so it's even better than the DPR shows. I really do like Haste as an alternative to Shadowblade. Shadowblade is very good on the surface. Haste is one of those spells that just gets better and better the deeper you look at it. We had a Tiny Hut as a ritual as we had no available preps, and we will be fighting alongside conjured animals now, so yeah, that'll be awesome. I'll talk about that in a minute. Our concentration will be dedicated to Haste primarily, and then Blur as a backup if we run out of slots for Haste, or Web, depending on the scenario. And so that's our round 1. We are going to be Haste, Blur, or Web, plus our Haste attack, and on our bonus action we'll be using Blade Song. Round 2, attack, and bonus action attack. Our Shepherd gains a 5th level in Druid and gains 3rd level Druid spells. So to our preps we are adding Conjure Animals and Mass Healing Word and dropping Summon Beast. So Conjure Animals is now online, the famed Druid summoning spell, elite at creating many allies, totaling massive damage, defensive soaks, and utility. So it's a spell that has lots of DM discretion. It's treated with high variability from table to table. It's often house ruled. Some tables even allow you to choose your own beast, which is like crazy OP. But it happens. There's a guy in my Discord who's in a game like that. And so there's just too much table variation and then variation within the spell itself to quantify as DPR. This is where that simplistic approach starts to break down. But even the floor is extremely high relative to the baseline. Now you could choose to use Summon Fae instead, if at your table Conjure Animals is ruled in a silly suboptimal way, or it's just straight up unwelcome and the DM strongly encourages, if not outright bans you from using it. But Summon Fae is just not as good. I mean, it's got less impact when you directly compare them to each other, and it doesn't work with Mighty Summoner because they don't have any hit dice. and their attacks are already mostly magical. But if we do use it, we will upcast it at 4th level to get the 2 attacks per round and the hit point bump. And I will point out there's a cool combo that you can do with the Trixie Fae, which creates this 5-foot square of darkness that you can combo with Shadowblade. You can paint a target in darkness and then gain attacks at advantage against it with your Shadowblade. So that's nice if you choose to go the Shadowblade and the Summon Fae route, which I don't recommend because I'm going in a different direction on this build for a reason. Remember, I tend to stack synergies very elegantly on top of each other, and if you pull a card from the middle of the house of cards because you want to put a different card in there, it might not always work out too well. But do what you like. That's why I present these builds in a modular way. Now I'm going to mostly be using the shove maneuver while in combat and in wild shape mount form, because now that I have lots of pets on the field, I will be able to grant them attacks at advantage by shoving the enemy prone. And that's going to result in a lot more damage than if I had just simplistically tried to attack myself. And to maximize the impact in combat, what you can do is move, shove, and move so that you end up attacking a non-prone enemy, right? The shoved enemy is now vulnerable to your pets, so they're going to follow up and attack him at advantage because he's prone. And he might take an opportunity attack against you as you're leaving his range, but it will be at disadvantage, and it's going to be redirected to the BladeSinger's superior armor class anyway, so who cares? And then you fight a non-prone opponent, because the BladeSinger on your back gets attacks at advantage as long as he's smaller than you due to mounted combatant. So that's how you would actually use this in combat to maximize those abilities. You can prep water breathing if necessary, and Mass Healing Word is an awesome bonus action healing option that can heal up to 6 allies for D4 plus 8 each. That's a total of 63 hit points total, so not bad for a 3rd level spell. And so our round 1 is pretty much set at this point. We are going to be conjuring animals or later upgraded summoning spells, and those animals will attack. And if we have a summon already up, because remember this spell lasts for an hour, we can just have them attack immediately, and we will do our round 2 actions immediately, namely Wild Shape into Mount Form, and try to use our bonus action to cast a useful spell. Level 7 is a big level for our BladeSinger because we get a 6th level of Wizard and extra attack. To our spellbook, we add Fireball and Magic Circle. We add Fireball to our preps because it's a good opportunistic blast. Magic Circle we're going to need later. And now that extra attack is online, it greatly bumped our DPR. You can see the numbers. And we are still mostly casting Haste, but if we run out of slots, we've got Blur and Web as our backups. Blade Song, our round 1 bonus action, and then in round 2 we are just going to be attacking. Our Druid adds a 6th level of Shepherd and adds Mighty Summoner, which is awesome. For preps we add Meld into Stone as an ultimate defense. Remember that you can still concentrate on summons and such while you're melded into the stone. See my deep dive on Meld into Stone for more details. And Mighty Summoner is just such a nice add to buff your conjure animals. They get more hit points, and they can affect creatures that have resistance to non-magical damage. And also, at this point, your strongest life berry becomes 7 hit points. Our round 1 and round 2 actions don't change. At level 8, our BladeSinger adds 4th level spells. So to the spellbook adds Dimension Door and Fire Shield, and preps them both, dropping Misty Step. Dimension Door is an elite no concentration utility defense option. It's a huge upgrade over Misty Step as we can bring the Druid along, not to mention the no sight needed and extended range. And Fire Shield is excellent on this build as a no concentration defense and creates offense for a melee caster, as the retribution damage will go off frequently, and it has a 10-minute duration, so we can aggressively precast it. We're not going to use it if we can't precast it though, unless it's an emergency versus many enemies landing attacks on us, like a swarm of insects or something. And just a calculations note, our DPR numbers dipped a little bit here as the baseline target AC increased again, and we did get another attack bump. So no changes to our round 1 and 2 actions, but adding the Fire Shield is very nice. And our Shepherd gets a 7th level of Druid and 4th level spells, so adds Conjure Woodland Beings and Freedom of Movement, dropping Fog Cloud. Conjure Woodland Beings is so good. It's an uber powerful upgrade to Conjure Animals. As before, the power of the spell will be table dependent, but it has a very high floor. Though, of course, Conjure Animals will still be prepped as a backup because we only have 2 4th level slots at this point. Freedom of Movement is one of my favorite spells. It's an elite 1 hour duration, no concentration defense utility option. And in fact, this whole level has some really good utility options. You can prep Control Water if necessary. This spell rules when you're at sea, like on a ship or near water or something. This character can prep Divination, can prep Locate Creature, can prep Hallucinatory Terrain. So these are all spells that you might want to employ to execute a particular plan or achieve a particular objective. And so those are nice to have in your back pocket. And we're going to be doing the same thing that we've been doing this whole time, except instead of Conjure Animals, we're casting Conjure Woodland Beings. At level 9, our BladeSinger gets an 8th level of Wizard and another ASI. To our spellbook, we add Resilient Sphere and Summon Greater Demon. For preps, we add them both and drop Web. And I like Resilient Sphere as an ultimate defense panic button that will cover both of us. Some marginal value as a save or suck as well. And Summon Greater Demon is just an amazingly powerful remote offense and utility option. I mean, there's role-playing synergy there because we're summoning buddies. And it's cool because the Druid and Wizard summon spells barely overlap, so we have like the full range of summoning spells available between the two of us. See my deep dive video on Summon Greater Demon for more info about how great that spell is. And we are now on a flying mount because the Druid is going to be accessing flying wild shapes. So we are just super cool at this point, flying around. We also now pass all standard concentration saves with Bladesong active at a +9 on our concentration check. And we used our feat to bump our dex. A little more AC, a little more damage, and still rolling out haste. Our Shepherd for level 8 Druid adds Alert as his next feat. For preps, he adds Conjure Minor Elementals because, of course, it fits the character, and methods can be really good, and you get a lot of them. And I love Alert. It's just an elite feat that gives you the initiative bump, you're never surprised, and under conditions of heavy obscurement, you're attacked at disadvantage, so always nice to add. And at this level, Flying Wild Shapes are now online. We will take on Quetzalcoatlus form or Giant Owl form as our primary wild shape mount options, and really provide a high level of cool factor and maneuverability to our buddy team up. And with the additional spell level, we get a bump to our max hit point life berries. We can pump out 8 hit point ones now. At level 10, our BladeSinger takes a 9th level of Wizard and gets access to 5th level spells. To our spellbook, we add Wall of Force and Planar Binding. For our preps, we will add Wall of Force for self-explanatory reasons, one of the best spells in the game. And we're adding Planar Binding for later when 6th level slots come online for an extended duration. It's still too early because right now it has only a 1-day duration, and that's just a little bit too impractical unless you're made of money. Now note that both casters are going to need to have Planar Binding, or else the DM might object, invoking the whole 6 seconds thing. That is technically, rules as written, you can't do both the summoning and the binding yourself because both have 1 hour durations. So rules as written, the summon would disappear 6 seconds before your planar binding actually takes effect. So a very minor nuance to the rules that might annoy you if your DM is a super stickler on that sort of thing, but buddies can do it. Da, 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 da. Since both of them can summon or bind, they can just team up and get the timing right. Remember, we can also cast Magic Circle, so we have all of the summoning elements we need. And I know some of you are thinking, oh my god, Nystul's Magic Aura. I'm not going to be abusing that here. I'm sorry, but I promise I will do a deep dive on that spell eventually. Our Shepherd Druid, gaining a 9th Druid level and 5th level spells, adds Transmute Rock, Wrath of Nature, and Mass Cure Wounds, dropping Spike Growth and Fairy Fire. Transmute Rock because it is a nasty no concentration control option, but it does create friendly fire, so it is situational. Wrath of Nature is also situational because it's concentration, but when you can spare the concentration, it is a nasty control option with no friendly fire. So really amazing, and it would allow the mounted buddies to operate in the area of effect, gaining all sorts of cool effects against your enemies while not having to worry about it yourself. And Mass Cure Wounds is an awesome healing option for 6 allies at 3d8 plus 10 each. Total of 141 hit points out of a 5th level spell. Not too bad. And at this level, you get some really amazing utility options that you can prepare if necessary. Greater Restoration, Scrying, Reincarnate, Awaken, Commune with Nature, and Conjure Elemental, remembering that you can still planar bind them for special occasions. 24-hour duration isn't great as an everyday thing, but if you really need one for an important battle, you can still do it. Then at level 11, we add a 10th level of Wizard, and Song of Defense comes online. We get a new cantrip, so we add Mind Sliver. To our spellbook, we add Animate Objects and Conjure Elemental, prepping Animate Objects. And Mind Sliver is a nice add as an elite debuff. It can set up our buddy's Save or Suck on the same round. Animate Objects is an elite attack option for range with an excellent DPR. I've listed the numbers for us. It synergizes with the Druid's Wrath of Nature for an absolutely nasty ranged AoE concentration tandem, and it does currently offer the highest DPR when combined with your regular rapier attacks, but it does sacrifice defense by occupying your concentration, so use it with discretion. So Conjure Elemental is not intended as a combat cast here, it's just to generate a pet for the Druid's planar binding. Cantrips bump at this level, so more damage to Green Flame Blade and Booming Blade. And Song of Defense is excellent for managing hit points and concentration, which is especially important given our role of soaking up all attacks at the Druid Buddy. Speaking of which, the Druid Buddy adds a 10th level of Shepherd and gains Guardian Spirit. Gets a new cantrip, so we'll take Mold Earth, adds Wall of Stone to his preps. Mold Earth is nice for utility, defense, and role-playing purposes. Wall of Stone because it's a great wall, and walls are awesome, and this one can become permanent, so it's even more awesome than most walls. And Guardian Spirit is fantastic add to this concept. I mean, buffing summons with regeneration every round, currently like 5 hit points per round, will eventually be 10 hit points per round. That is fantastic for our summoning build, and now we can pump out 9 hit point life berries. The most important thing for this build, and what is probably going to start breaking the game, is that we are going to be using planar binding as it was clearly intended to be used. I know it's crazy, but some DMs will say, oh my god, using planar binding, a spell that's in the player's handbook, is breaking the game. But we're going to use it, because now at 6th level, it has a 10-day duration. That's doable in terms of creating an always-on pet, and so we are now going to be commanding an Earth Elemental at all times going forward. I mean, we could bind a demon instead, or we could do both. I probably prefer the demon myself, but we're keeping this family friendly, so we're going with the Elemental. Demons is why we picked up Magic Circle a few levels back, so go crazy. Depends on your campaign. And at this level, you might be able to do multiples. I mean, it's 1,000 gold pieces per cast, maybe you're rich. But I mean, come on, we wouldn't be very good summoners if we ignored planar binding, right? So please don't tell me it's cheesy to bind creatures. That's like the whole point of the spell. At level 12, we become 11th level wizards and add 6th level spells. So to our spellbook, we add Contingency and Summon Fiend, and we will prep Summon Fiend. Our Contingency is going to be a fire shield that activates on a command word. That means we can now activate it when necessary as a free action for elite action economy. It is annoying to set up, and it might require a day off from casting to do so, or at least very strict slot management, so use it with discretion, but it's a nice ability to add to our arsenal. And Summon Fiend is pretty cool. It's a combat cast, it's strong, it's durable, it can fly, it has a ranged option. And now we too can upcast planar binding at 6th level, so we can bind the druid summons. So we're going to use Conjure Fey to bind a giant crocodile or a mammoth and use it as our mount, because we have mounted combatant. That's going to be fun. Or the druid can cast planar binding on our summon, and we just added Summon Fiend, so we can get one of those as an always-on pet. Our druid gets 6th level spells as well, and so he's going to be adding Conjure Fey and Bones of the Earth and dropping Conjure Minor Elemental. So Conjure Fey is a combat cast, but also it's part of our binding progression. We're going to combo it with the BladeSinger's planar binding and get lots of great pets. Since it's a combat cast, we might double up on them. And so we're going to just add a giant crocodile to the Earth Elemental as always on pets. I mean, just scratching the surface, but no reason not to have them. We can do it. And the croc is awesome. I mean, it's got an elite 3d 10+5+ auto restrain bite attack and a tail attack that causes a strength save versus prone. I mean, and it's an underwater form. I love giant crocodile. Bones of the Earth, I think, is a super cool spell. Just a great visual. Does damage, it restrains, it prones. I really like spells like that. And at this level, you get some really awesome utility options that you're not going to want to prep every day, but when the time comes, they're super useful. Windwalk? man, what a great travel spell. Druid's Grove, Find the Path, Hero's Feast, Move Earth, Transport via Plants. These are all great utility spells. I was really impressed when I was looking over that list. At level 13, we add a 12th level of Wizard and another ASI, so we max out our decks. To our spellbook, we add Create Homunculus and Soul Cage, prepping them both and dropping Flock of Familiars, because we have a homunculus now that will replace the Flock of Familiars as far as like life berry distribution goes. Because remember, we've been distributing life berries with abandon this entire time. And it gets the normal utility uses. I mean, I love the homunculus and I'm a big fan of their unlimited telepathic range, among other things. And Soul Cage is an elite reaction. It grants you 8 hours of intel, healing, advantage, and scrying. And it just is good action economy because it adds powers to our reaction. Our dex is maxed out now, our concentration saves bump to +10, and our partner adds Mobile as his feat when he gains a 12th level of Druid. For preps, we're adding Heal as a full healing option to support the BladeSinger in the party. I mean, it's just nice to have around. Our max hit point Life Berry bumps to 10. Planar Binding now lasts 30 days when upcast at 7th level, so realistically, this just means we are going to have a lot of bound summons at this point. There's really no reason why we wouldn't have a bunch. But for the purposes of this build, we're just going to go with the 1 Earth Elemental or Demon and like the 1 Giant Crocodile here, just to keep things in check. I presume that the DM's only going to let you have so many, because otherwise you're going to break the game, but in theory, there's no reason that you can't have dozens. I liked Mobile as our ASI here, because that's going to buff our Wild Shapes with a +10 move and a free disengage. It seems to me like that should work rules as written, and Jeremy Crawford tweets support it, but talk to the DM about feats in Wild Shape just because that's a little bit ambiguous. As I read it, those should be added to the Wild Shape forms. At 14th level, we get a 13th level of Wizard and add 7th level spells. So we bring online Force Cage and Simulacrum. We prep Force Cage because it's an insane, no save, no brainer control option. And Simulacrum is now online. I mean, I would be shocked if any wizard didn't start with these two as their 7th level spells. They're just too good. Now, as a reminder, I included a Rapier section in the DPR column that is going to reflect our abilities with no spell slots. That's what our Simulacrum can do without casting any 1st or higher level spells. And we need to manage those pretty carefully because they can't get them back. But yeah, Simulacrum means things are getting pretty crazy up in here, folks. Although maybe not as much as usual because we probably already broke the game by using Planar Binding. But like the Simulacrum is just at this point another pet. I mean, we have super powerful pets right now. The Simulacrum being the most powerful. Our Druid adds a 13th level of Shepherd and adds to his preps Reverse Gravity. It's not amazing, but it's fun, and we can later combo it with Prismatic Wall for lots of fun insta-kills. You could take Firestorm here, I guess, especially if you're binding devils that have fire immunity. But honestly, the 7th level Druid spells are not that impressive as combat casts. So I went with Reverse Gravity here. I will say the 7th level Druid spells are awesome for utility though. They get Plane Shift, Regenerate, Symbol, and Mirage Arcane. So those are really, really nice adds on a case-by-case basis. But again, for daily combat casts, it's not the most impressive list, so we went with Reverse Gravity here. At 15th level, we gain a 14th level of Wizard and Song of Victory. To our spellbook, we are adding Create Magin and Teleport, and we will prep Teleport. We're going to use Create Magin for a Galvan Magin Helper. It has the most hit points of any Magin, like 60-something, has the best attacks, it flies, it spits lightning bolts. So pretty cool little beast to have at your side. Teleport's a wizard must-have, and it's going to synergize with telepathy, which we're going to take later. And Song of Victory is awesome. It is now online to bump our DPR across the board. Just make sure you refresh your Simulacrum so it has Song of Victory too. For our 14th Druid level, our Shepherd is going to add Faithful Summons, and to our preps add Firestorm. We're adding Firestorm because I guess we might want to blast sometime. I mean, really, it's because the only other viable option was Whirlwind, and I just don't need another concentration control spell. So, okay, I guess we're going to blast, and again, it does have synergy with Devil Pets that have fire immunity. And Faithful Summons is pretty cool. Obviously, I hope I never have to use it. But if I ever do get close to 0 or reduce to 0, I'll take it. We can pump out 11-point Life Berries at this point. And our planar binding now lasts 6 months when upcast at 8th level. Really not too many limits at this point on how many summons we can keep around, except for the Dungeon Master. At 16th level, our BladeSinger gets Wizard 15 and 8th level spells. So we add Maze and Demiplane, dropping Fire Shield as it is in our contingency now. Maze, of course, is an amazing no-save FU, and Demiplane is awesome for this build as a Sanctum, an ultimate defense, and as pet storage. I mean, we're going to have dozens of bound summons at this point, so Demiplane is a great way to store them. I mean, the DM is totally going to go for this direction, right? To our Demiplane, we can add Glyphs of Warding. I mean, surely we can afford to add this by scroll by now, and the Druid can sketch in a symbol for us. Our Simulacrum can now cast Create Magians, so we're going to double up on those. And now we can cast Planar Binding at 8th level for a 6-month duration on our Giant Croc and whatever else the Druid summons. Our Druid, adding a 15th level of Druid and 8th level spells, preps Feeble Mind. Feeble Mind is a brutal save or suck option that does a little bit of damage. You can set it up with the BladeSinger's Mind Sliver for a 1-round BBEG killer. Again, not the greatest selection of 8th level spells available to Druids, so this one seemed the best. And again, they have a nice selection of utility options. Antipathy, Sympathy, Control Weather, Animal Shapes. Those can all be good in the right situation. But again, not the best combat cast, always on preps, so I just went with Feeble Mind. At level 17, we hit tier 4 by adding a 16th level of Wizard. To our book, we add Telepathy and Clone, and we prep Telepathy. Telepathy because we're buddies. We do everything together, even think. It has a 24-hour duration, so like Goodberry, we can cast it before a long rest, and then we just get the slot back. Unlimited range is always pleasant, and nice synergy with Teleport and the Druid's Plane Shift. He'll be able to send me visuals, and then I'll be able to teleport in. We had Clone for Immortality, and we're going to need it because our Druid buddy has Timeless Body, so how else will we be able to be wrecking things as buddies 200 years from now if I don't have a clone? With our feat, we start bumping our Intelligence. Our cantrips bump up to max, so Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade are pretty wicked at this point, and you can see the numbers. And our concentration checks bump to plus 12, so pretty impressive. Our Shepherd partner adds a 16th level of Druid. To his preps adds Incendiary Cloud and Tsunami. Incendiary Cloud is a lethal, persistent area of effect, so we can combo it with the BladeSinger's Force Cage, Wall of Force, Devils with Fire Immunity, all that stuff. Tsunami is a super long range, FU, I wipe out your town option. And he's got a range of sight, so yeah, that's pretty awesome. We use our feat to start bumping our Wisdom. We can pump out 12 hit point Life Berries. And we can now upcast Planar Binding at 9th level for a 1-year duration, because 6 months isn't enough. At 18th level, our BladeSinger goes to Wizard 17 and gets 9th level spells. We add Wish and Shape Change to our book. And we normally prep Wish, which we can abuse liberally, especially since we have Clone and Simulacrums. Of course, the DM might have something to say about that. But we did add Shape Change as a crazy good combat option, because our forms are extra buff. I mean, you add Blade Song and Song of Defense and Song of Victory to a Shape Change form, that is nasty. Like a Marileth, with all those attacks, getting Song of Victory and Blade Song. Most of these, it's almost impossible to lose their concentration because it's so high, and then you're stacking Blade Song on top of it. Oh, they're so good. And the Druid is also getting Shape Change at this level, so you can buddy up with him for maximum wreckage. And now you too can cast Planar Binding at 9th level for a 1-year duration. Yay. The Druid adds a 17th level of Shepherd and gains access to 9th level spells, so he will also prep Shape Change. And he will also prep Storm of Vengeance and drop Divination. Again, Shape Change because mounted buddies wreck stuff together. And Storm of Vengeance as just an insane long distance attack control. Sight range, 360-foot radius. I mean, this thing is nasty. Combine it with the BladeSinger's Meteor Swarm to really mess up a city's day. And we can prep True Resurrection if necessary, so that is a really sweet add. At level 19, our BladeSinger adds Spell Mastery. To his spellbook, we add Gate and Meteor Swarm. We will prep Meteor Swarm. It's a nice combo with Druid's Storm of Vengeance or Tsunami to really obliterate stuff from extreme range. Personally, destroying a town as twin dragons sounds like more fun, but I guess that gets boring someday. I mean, once you've done it a dozen times, maybe you want to try something different. And then, of course, we're going to be using Gate with the Druid's planar binding to get even more amazing demon pets. I mean, once we throw in a Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum to prevent them from teleporting out, there's literally nothing we can't bind. I mean, we've just officially completed our summoning progression. It just doesn't get any more powerful than binding any creature in the game. And these buddies can do it. They've been doing it for a long time. It's just how they like to roll. For Spell Mastery, we're going to add an At-Will Shield and Misty Step. I mean, why not? At 19th level, our Shepherd gets an 18th Druid level, adds Timely Body and Beast spells. To his preps adds Foresight, which is pretty good. I mean, you can leverage that duration with Rest Tricking, but I'm mostly taking it because it's literally the only spell left to choose. I mean, wow, only 4 spells on the whole list? Not what I expected, but okay, now we've got them all. And of course, Beast Spells is a super nice add. I mean, casting from Wild Shape, yeah, I'm all over that. The mounted team just got even more lethal. And then we make it to level 20. Our BladeSinger adds a 19th Wizard level, gets his final ASI to max out his intelligence. To his spellbook adds True Polymorph and Prismatic Wall. True Polymorph to break the game in various ways, for example, a Hollyphant. Prismatic Wall because it's pretty funny to combo it with the Druid's Reverse Gravity. I mean, I just want to pull that off once just to see what happens. It'll be hilarious. And our Shepherd at Druid 19 maxes out his Wisdom. To his preps just adds Revivify and Greater Restoration. I mean, there's really no more good spells to add, so I'm just filling some holes here. Those are 2 nice ones that you're going to want to carry around, even at 20th level. And we now have Max Wisdom. All right, that's it, huh? Long video. We had a lot to cover, but I think that buddy build worked, right? I mean, a classic BladeSinger that has strong DPR numbers and just tons of versatility and things that he can do, using Mounted Combatant to protect the Druid, who is going to be healing in Tier 1, but eventually pumping out all sorts of crazy summons and, just generating crazy, uncalculable DPR through summons. And they just really work great together as a team with lots of different synergies as they level up together. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Does all of this work? Do you have any ideas on how to make it even better? I'm always interested to hear. And regardless, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Power Gamers Tactics Room. I'm your host, Bill Bafflestone. See you next time.